Hi, Haunted family, and welcome back to another episode. I hope you've been liking what you've been hearing. If you have been, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. If you follow our podcast, you've probably heard us mention that our great-grandmother had a blue orb of light that would appear to her at times and relay information. It appeared to her the night that her son Prince died and told her that her son had died before anybody was able to make it to her house to let her know. And at various points throughout her life, it appeared to her. Other family members have also had experiences with this same blue glowing ball of light. And apparently, it's not unique to our family. I wouldn't think that it would be. But I think of these lights as more than just the easily dismissed orbs that you see in some paranormal photos. The vast majority of which are easily explained away as bugs or moisture or any number of things. These orbs that I'm talking about in this episode and that my great-grandmother experienced are absolutely visible with the naked eye. And they are sometimes as large as a basketball or larger. So, sit back and enjoy the show. I was never much of a believer in ghosts or paid much interest in that sort of thing until I had an experience with something. My wife and I were fast asleep with our son, who at the time was 3. I was woke suddenly by the inability to move or speak. I closed my eyes, thinking it was lucid dreaming, but when I opened them again, I knew, as sure as the sky was blue, that I really was awake, and that something was very wrong. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up, and I could sense that something was above me, right above my head, like on the pillow or something. Suddenly, a bright ball of light began to dance around the room. The ball of light was maybe no bigger than a soccer ball, but it would shrink and expand in size at will. I tried to track its movement around the room, but was still completely paralyzed. Even my eyes wouldn't move. I began to fight the paralysis by giving my muscles everything I had, commanding them to move. Still nothing. My fear grew as the helpless feeling began to overcome me. I'm a hefty guy, at 6'1", and just over 250 pounds. I'm a construction worker, so you can understand why not being able to move and feeling so helpless and weak would bother me. I continued to fight, determined to wiggle out a toe or twitch a muscle. Still nothing. The ball of light then shrunk to the size of a grapefruit and stayed in the top corner of the room, hovering for a bit, and then it made its way around behind my head and on my pillow. This time I knew 150% I was awake. I could feel it. Its energy tickled to the top of my head, made my hair stand up. Just like you can feel the static on your hair when it stands up from rubbing a balloon on your head, that same feeling. It came around again and began darting around the room. This time my fear overcame me, and I knew not what its intentions were. Is it a ghost? Alien? Strange atmospheric event? I didn't know. All I knew was that I needed to find a way to wake up my wife, and fast. I began to fight the paralysis even harder. I felt as if I had a lead weight on my chest. I realized that I had my arm under my son's head, and my fingertips were touching my wife's hair. I tried calling her name but couldn't speak. If only I could move my fingertips enough to poke her. The ball of light seemed to sense the fight in me. As it paused above my knees and expanded to the size of a beach ball, I could feel the pressure on my chest and my vocal cords increase. It was fighting back. It began to slowly move towards my face. I was desperately trying to call out to my wife. I began to feel something strange in my left arm. My fingers were halfway responding to my commands. My fingers wiggled the back of my wife's head. I knew my opportunity had come. It was almost there. The wiggling finger, the muffled moans caught my wife's attention. As she lifted her head, not even an inch off her pillow, I was able to suck in a large breath and let out a large scream, while at the same time grabbing a fistful of my wife's hair. Whatever was holding me released me, and the ball of light vanished as my poor wife bolted up, with my hands still holding her hair. I told her what had happened, and in a calm voice she said, It's okay. It was a spirit. My wife has always been sensitive to spirits, and I have never paid much attention to it, or her stories about them until now. That was my first and last to-date experience with anything alien or paranormal. After it left, I felt calm, and after talking to my wife a bit, I fell right back to sleep, with no worry or anxiety. I do not know what it was or what it wanted. I do not know if it was harmless or evil. I like to think it was harmless, but what plays rough by paralyzing me? Sometimes people are just better off not knowing about things until they are ready, and maybe we won't be ready in this world. Myrtle's Plantation is an old antebellum home in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It's one of many haunts in Louisiana, but it's regarded as the most haunted by many in the paranormal world. When I first heard about it, I knew I wanted to go. So me and some of my friends, 6 friends, decided to go and spend the night. When we first arrived, we went to our rooms, and I had a very uneasy feeling. In fact, one of the people with us noticed how nervous I was, because he could see my hands shaking. I told him that it felt like I had pins and needles all over, and that I had this overwhelming sense that I was not alone. I told my husband that whatever happened, whatever he did, do not leave me alone for even a moment. I told the rest of our group the same thing. I am not all that gifted when it comes to sensing the paranormal, but I had this feeling that I could not shake. From the moment we drove onto the grounds, the first thing that happened was when my husband and I decided to set up our video camera in our room and keep it running while we were exploring the little town and visiting the graves of some of the former owners. We turned the camera on and plugged it into one of the wall sockets, and didn't rely on batteries, so we knew it would run longer. The camera was working fine, and it showed us having trouble getting our bedroom door to lock, and then it showed us finally getting it to work. I said, "There it is, it locks now," and we closed the door. We could hear the lock click and lock. Just after that, the camera shuts itself off and would not work the rest of the weekend. It began to work again perfectly fine after we arrived home. One of the trademarks of Myrtle's Plantation that many paranormal investigators comment on is that they often have camera equipment that just refuses to cooperate or work. I guess that's what we were experiencing there. Darkness was coming on, and the couple that brought us began to share the stories that had happened to them on a previous visit, and what happened to friends of theirs. I was really getting scared now, especially since it was now dark. At the Myrtles, if you just sit quietly for minutes, you can hear footsteps and people talking where there is no one. We pulled out a Ouija board and began to play with it. I could not use it for long because my hands shook so bad. I was afraid I would not get the right connections with the board. Some of the others played it, and we all knew it was working. The first results were just nonsense talk, but all of a sudden, a white ball of light was bouncing between the 2 people playing, and then they began to get pins and needles feeling, starting in their fingertips and traveling up their arms and out of their heads. One person was actually thrown back into their chair. We took a photo and caught the ball of light. After that, we all decided to go to our rooms and wait alone till anything happened. But before we finished, my friend told the board that I had come specifically to become a believer, and that I wanted a ghost to show me some kind of sign tonight. The only time that night that we received an answer that was clear came at that time from the board. It spelled out, yes, soon, tonight. That really made me feel good. I was really upset and could not go to sleep when we finally got to our room. My husband, who was somewhat skeptical, fell asleep right away. I heard every noise that there was and made him sleep with the lights on. Everything was fine till 3 a.m. Then my proof became reality. Without a hint of warning, and through the covers, something gently grabbed my foot and began to shake it. I pulled my foot away, but it then grabbed my other foot, right around the ankle. I will swear to my dying day that it was a hand, and it then proceeded to run its hand up my leg, all the time with just very gentle pressure. I pulled my leg away once again, but then immediately I was grabbed on the opposite leg in the same way. This happened a total of 3 times before I finally said, "I believe in you. You are scaring me. Will you please leave me alone?" With that, there was a loud noise like someone took 2 pieces of 2x4 wood and beat them together really hard. I was then left alone for the rest of the night. My friends in the next room said they heard the loud noise. My husband slept through the whole thing. I regret that while all this was happening, I had my eyes tightly shut under the covers, but I promised myself that if I ever had a chance to go back, and it happened again, I would look. Well, we did go back, and I did look. So did other members of my family, and we all became true believers. Yes, Virginia, there really are ghosts. My husband and I were home one evening, watching TV in the living room. All of a sudden, in the next room, which was the dining room, there was a huge flash of bright blue light that lit up the entire dining room. A couple seconds later, it happened again, only lighting up the dining room. I got up and went into the entrance of the dining room. At the time, we had temporarily set up a small TV in the dining room, where my stepson had been playing Xbox. This TV had been turned off, and it was now turned on. It was then that something caught my attention. Close to 5 feet away, directly in front of me, up towards the ceiling, there was a blue ball of light, about the size of a football. I stood there, silently staring at it as it hovered motionlessly. It did not move, it just sat there. Yet I swear it had some sort of energy. It was almost pulsating. After about 20 minutes of staring, it then shot across the room and into my kitchen. It was moving very quickly. It didn't move in the shape of a ball. It was at the time more of a blue beam that shot down and into my kitchen. It shot all the way across my kitchen, and when it reached the floor, it then started, for lack of a better way to describe it, emanating. It was still blue. It was about 2 feet wide and about 4 feet high, and it just started moving like a hazy smoke. At this time, I looked away from it and went back to the living room. I told my husband. We both went into the kitchen right away, and there was nothing. My husband wasn't with me when this took place, but he did see the 2 flashes of bright blue light which first took place. I also find it strange that as this was happening, it didn't strike me as weird that I was watching this. My husband was just around the corner, and I didn't say anything right away. About 2 months later, I was upstairs in my house, and I witnessed the bright blue flashes upstairs. When this happened, I went straight downstairs. I wasn't scared of it the first time it happened, but I didn't want to see it again, especially not while I was alone in the house. Other than this, the only other things that's happened was, during a sunny spring day, my stepson and I were in another room of the house, and the room went completely black for just a couple seconds. It turned completely dark and black. I was going to pretend that it didn't happen, but immediately after it happened, my stepson asked me what it was. I told him that the light bulb must have flickered, even though the light wasn't actually on in the first place. It was just the bright sunshine coming through the window. So I really have no logical explanation for why, for just a few split seconds, the sunlight stopped streaming through our window. Why our room went black.